Okay, this video is called I Am More Polish from You, and it's about a text message that I sent to my wife, my ex-wife now. And I have to give you the backstory so it'll make sense. Everybody in my family will immediately get this joke. Okay, my wife grew up in rural Poland when it was under communist control. Every day when she'd go to school, she would have to salute a picture of Lenin. And she did, manual labor on a small family farm. Her parents were divorced. She would, carry the water, go to the bathroom in an outhouse, that sort of thing. Very rural little village. That's who my wife really is, and this is who my wife thinks she is. She thinks she's a Polish aristocrat, like from Krakow. And for somebody from Poland, that's like the highest thing you could be, a Polish Krakow aristocrat. And her friends, other lady doctors, think they're Polish Krakow aristocrats. Only the finest clothing with the finest people. And typical Sunday would be to go to church with a Polish-speaking priest and have everybody dressed nice like a Polish aristocrat, very high class, posh. And then the secret thing, that's what my wife thinks she is, but here's who my wife sort of wishes she was, to be like Martha Stewart. This is Martha Stewart right here. And Martha Stewart, is often featured like in Better Homes and Gardens, a beautiful house, nice furniture, and little amenities in the kitchen and whatnot. And there's another little thing to it. Martha Stewart's got this big elongated thing coming out of her waist. A bit of envy, if you know what I'm saying, of the Johnson, okay? My wife was always jealous of me. She would pretend that she wasn't and insult me, but deep down she was really jealous of me. Okay, but anyways, her dream was to be like Martha Stewart and have people come over and tell her how beautiful her house was, how beautiful her garden was. And she had a magnificent sense of taste for decorating things. When my wife would decorate the living room for Christmas, it was magnificent. It really was something spectacular out of Better Homes and Gardens. And she had a fantastic skill for making a garden. She just knew how to put all the plants in the right place, and it looked magnificent. It really did. She often said she wishes that she had been an interior decorator. And if I haven't said it already, my wife was stunningly beautiful. She was a perfect 10. She was as beautiful as a woman could be. And, when I first met her, I was hypnotized by her. She was so beautiful. Okay, and I came from a very different background in the sense that I grew up in a big, noisy household. My parents were happily married for their whole life. Our house was always full of kids and our friends, and my mom adopted some kids. So we always had a big, joyful house. And there's always running around and joking and playing, and it was very robust and kind of wealthy, okay? Now, I really liked Poland because it reminded me of Ireland, and I just liked it. And I spent a long time trying to understand Poland. I read histories of Poland, I read the fairy tales from Poland, the bajki, and I decided to teach myself how to speak Polish. So I went through all the basic books, and I even read the Vinci Code in Polish, okay? My Polish vocabulary was pretty good, but nobody would talk to me. My wife refused to speak to me in Polish. She said, you'd have to be born again to learn Polish. And the truth was, she didn't want me to learn Polish because she wanted to control the whole house. Ona chce kontrolować wszystko. Okay, what that meant was she wanted to be able to speak Polish around me. All the babysitters, I would talk to them in Polish and they would laugh their heads off when I tell them funny stories about my wife and the kids. But they would be scared to talk to me because they'd be afraid that would get back to the missus. And my wife would make fun of my Polish in front of the kids. So the kids would say, Dad, your Polish sucks, your Polish sucks. So nobody would practice with me. Eventually I got busy at work and I couldn't keep studying my Polish. Anyways, a typical scene was I'm sitting at the kitchen table reading a book. No one else was home. My wife walks in the house, sees me reading at the table, and she says, "Why are you reading at the table? That is so rude, so low class." I said, "Because I'm by myself. If people were here, I'd talk to them." She said, "You have no manners." Me, I just read a book about the history of Poland, and the peasants forbid their children to read at the kitchen table, but the aristocrats encourage their children to read at the kitchen table. So you're training the kids to be peasants, but I'm teaching them to be aristocrats. Wife, I can't believe I married such an autistic loser. My ancestors were royalty. Me, oh BS. Every girl from Poland says the same thing. My ancestors were royalty. One of my relatives got cancer from Chernobyl, and my daddy was an alcoholic. So What I did with our house, this was like our second house, and I love this place. For me, it's the greatest house I ever lived in my whole life. I put this tennis wall in the backyard. You could hit tennis balls against it. I put this big basketball net in the back, and you could then hit the tennis balls. If they went over, they go into that. And there was a full court basketball court out there in the back. It was awesome. We had a pool. Everybody loved it. Everybody wanted to come to our house. All my relatives, all my friends, all the neighbors, everybody wanted to come over. Had a 40,000-gallon in-ground pool. I managed the pool. All the kids, all the friends were always over there. We always had tons of people coming over. Had a jungle gym for the kids. I had an animal, like a petting zoo. I had an organic garden for farming. I set up the whole thing, and it sounds expensive, but it wasn't that expensive. I managed the whole thing. It was all my idea, and it was magnificent, and everybody loved it, and my wife was totally jealous. We had an organic gardening spot, a little farm. It was beautiful. It was wonderful. I thought, like, this is like heaven on earth, and I loved the place. Here's one of the kids playing with the turtle. We had chickens that used to lay eggs. We had geese. We had roosters. We had rabbits. We had a lot of stuff. There's this big, big fenced-in area like a petting zoo, okay? It was kind of awesome. All right, then I converted one of the bedrooms into a racquetball court, and we could play racquetball in our house. I thought that was a lot of fun. We had a wrestling room, as a college wrestler, and we had a wrestling room for training for wrestling in the basement. We had a bunch of weightlifting stuff, a squat rack. The basement was pretty cool. Then here's where I went too far. I came home from work one day, and my kid's going to 7th grade, and he's like, Dad, you're not a good parent. I said, why do you say that? And he says, because you don't help me. All the other boys' dads help them practice basketball. One kid's dad is a coach of the team. The other kid's dad practices with them all the time. You don't help me. All you do is work. I said, well, let me think about it, buddy. Besides, you got a basketball court out in the yard. He goes, it's too cold to play out in the yard. I said, well, let me think about it. So I called up a carpenter friend. We boarded up the windows with the wood, and then I moved this portable basketball court into the room. We had a high ceiling. We had a wooden floor. We were just using the living room for storage. So I thought it would be okay. I didn't ask the wife in advance. I knew she would have blocked it, but I figured once she saw how happy the kids would be, she'd be okay with it. But she wasn't. When my wife saw the indoor basketball court, she went apeshit banana. As far as she was concerned, this was one more thing on top of all the others. She said, this is not a fucking gymnasium. This is a house. You are crazy. She said, I've had it with your bullshit. I'm going to buy a new house. I'm going to go looking for a new house, and my sister's going to help me, and you are going to pay for it. And I thought she was joking because, we loved it. The little kids would ride their tricycles around the house. All the neighbors came over. Everyone would want to come over. My kid would practice 3.5 hours a day. He became a star. She would say the basketball bouncing all day is driving her freaking crazy. It's breaking the foundation. The house is going to collapse. I'm lowering the property bill. The property value, I belong in in the barrio. She thought that I was insane, and she hated it. I offered to build an add-on to the house so she could have had her Martha Stewart living room. We just wanted to keep our basketball court, but she actually bought a new house. And like a wuss, instead of being a man, I was a mouse. I moved over with her to the new house because I'd seen so many terrible outcomes. I've seen divorces where the kids get, turned into drug addicts, drop out of school, commit suicide, become alcoholics. I've seen tons and tons of bad outcomes from divorced families. So I didn't want that. I figured, at least I got the kids I got. I'll stick around and stay with the marriage because I should have divorced her right then and kept the old house. But I left the old house, moved to her new house, which is a prissy, stupid house. It looks nice on a holiday when it's decorated, but every other day of the year it's full of dog crap and it's totally stupid. But I did move to the new house and I regretted it. I want to share with you a couple pictures from Jan Matejko, the greatest artist ever from Poland and one of the greatest all-time artists. He was in love with Poland, and he wanted to keep the history of Poland alive. During the 1800s, Poland had been under partition in between Russia, Germany, and Austria, and the people were forgetting their history. And so he vowed that he would make it his life's mission to remember the history of Poland. And he painted great scenes from the history of Poland. And he really believed in freedom, and he devoted his whole life to that. Okay. As a matter of fact, the School of Fine Arts in Krakow is named the Jan Matejko Academy. Just to let you know, my wife thought all of this stuff about me studying nutrition, biochemistry, pathophysiology, she thought it was a big joke. I could be making a couple extra $100,000 a year if I would just get a moonlighting job, and why wouldn't I do that to make money for the family? She would use my books as paperweights to flatten out her rugs. Okay, I'm not joking. This is an actual picture of what she did with some of my books, okay? And then she had a nickname for me, and it's like 5 insults all at once. She called me Stanczyk. Stanczyk was the name of, this is a painting by Jan Matejko from 1862 of Stanczyk. He was living around the mid-1500s in Poland, and he was the court jester. So she's calling me on the one hand, for example, here's a party and everybody's drinking and have a good time, but Stanczyk has his back to the crowd. He's sitting in the other room. His little rattle is on the ground. He's a party pooper. He doesn't drink. There's a letter on the table that Poland has lost a battle to Smolensk. There's a comet as a bad omen of a downer. He's worried about the future of Poland. And basically, when she would call me Stanczyk, she meant that I was a party pooper, that I was taking the fun out of the party, that I'm no fun because I don't drink, and why don't I just engage in small talk and be silly like everyone else, and that I'm also kind of short, and I dress like a clown, and nobody takes me seriously, that I'm kind of a big joke. Okay, so that was kind of her reason for calling me Stanczyk. By the way, take a look at Stanczyk's face. That's Jan Matejko. He painted himself as Stanczyk. Jan Matejko also celebrated great scientists, academic heroes like Copernicus. Okay, Copernicus totally rewrote the books of astronomy, the Copernican inversion of science. Okay, Jan Matejko celebrated the academic renaissance in Poland. And by the way, he would again portray himself as Stanczyk. Okay, then Stanczyk was present at all these great historical events. This is raising the bell of Zygmunt. Okay, and this was typical of Jan Matejko to celebrate the great historical events of academic and other achievements for the Polish people. To remember history, to remember great things. And here's a painting by Jan Matejko of Jan Sobieski, the King of Poland, who led the forces in the Great Battle of Vienna in 1683 when they defeated the Ottoman Turks. And that was a great thing that helped save Christendom. Okay, a great Polish hero. Jan Matejko also painted the great Polish saints, Saint Cyril and Methodius. Okay, and I've made videos about them. I've made videos about all this stuff. I've made videos about Jan Matejko. Okay. And here's another great painting of Jan Matejko, the Sermon of Skarga, where he's sort of yelling at the king for screwing up and for not doing what he should by the Polish people. Okay? And Christianity is a very powerful thing in Poland. It unites the people. It makes them stronger, happier, smarter. And other things that unite a people is their language, their history, their culture. They should know these things. Okay? So this is the Sermon of Skarga by Jan Matejko. And he's standing up for Christianity. Okay, now here's another very famous, important Polish painting. It's called The Fall of Poland, and it's also called Rejtan, because Rejtan is the Polish man right here. And this was a meeting amongst the aristocrats of Poland right in 1795. And basically, a deal had been made where Germany, Austria, and Russia had paid off some Polish aristocrats to betray Poland and sell it out so that Poland was partitioned between Germany, Russia, and Austria. And once the Polish aristocrats step out of this room, that would indicate their approval of the partition. And Rejtan said, "Do not do this. Do not do this. Do not do this." He laid on the ground, he pulled his shirt apart, tore his shirt apart, and he said, "Go ahead, step on me. Go ahead and kill me. I don't care, but do not step on Poland. Do not kill Poland. Do not destroy the motherland." He tried to save Poland. Jan Matejko painted this magnificent painting. And here's a text I sent to my wife. "You call me Stanczyk to tease me as being a party pooper who doesn't drink, dresses like a clown. No one takes him seriously, but Stanczyk was more than that. He was the conscience of Poland. He was the smartest man in Poland. He was a scholar of the ancient Greek and Roman classics and the Italian Renaissance. Matejko saw himself as a modern Stanczyk and painted himself as Stanczyk in other paintings like the Bell of Zygmunt. Matejko kept the history of Poland alive during the partition of the 1800s. I am honored to be like Stanczyk and Matejko. Like Matejko's Copernicus, I have rewritten the science books, the medical books. Like Matejko, I have kept history alive with my books about art, music, literature, and history. And Christianity, like Matejko's painting of Raytan in the fall of Poland, I tried to save our family. The aristocrats sold out Poland to Germany, Austria, and Russia. You sold out our family to a truck driver. I am more Polish than you.